Well, hello and welcome, everybody, wherever you may be. This is Tom Kelly, and the show is Real Estate Today, right here on the new KIRO Radio Weekends, 97.3 KIRO FM. Every Sunday morning at 9, we take your questions, comments, and concerns about housing, home loans, tax, everything under your roof. In fact, if you borrow against your roof, this is the place to call. Today, do bargains still exist in the short sale process in the Puget Sound? Or has home appreciation come to the rescue for everybody? With me today is short sale expert Wes Jones. He's with Home Helper Consultants, and I'll be talking with Wes for about the next hour about the state of short sales. Are there bargains out there? Are they just too difficult to play around with? If you're a real estate agent and you're dealing with home sales, short sales, this is a great day to call. 1-888-973-KIRO. That's 1-888-973-5476. Or go to our websites, mynorthwest.com, KIROradio.com, and we can take your question online right now. The topic is short sales, often confusing. People think that they're misleading, but we got an expert with us today, Wes Jones from Home Helper Consultants. Wes, welcome and good morning. Thanks for taking the time.
Tom, thanks for having me in again.
Let's talk a little bit about nuts and bolts, short sales versus foreclosures. There's a benefit to going to a short sale for a variety of reasons. In fact, the borrower can probably buy sooner, Wes, if they do a short sale. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, and that's probably one of the main driving forces that a homeowner is going to take the time to complete the short sale process is the impact on their credit. The impact on their credit is going to be much less severe in a short sale than it would be if they allowed foreclosure to happen around them. So now, that doesn't mean that their credit will not be impacted. You know, it certainly is, but it just won't be as devastating as a foreclosure.
Wes, what about the market for short sales? Everybody talks about that homes are appreciating in the Puget Sound area. What's the market today versus about a year ago?
That's a great question, Tom. And, I did my first short sale probably in 2008, maybe the beginning of 2009. And if you would have told me that here in 2014 that we'd be sitting here on the radio talking about short sales and having that be still a significant part of my business, I would have told you were crazy. As far as a year ago, I mean, there are less out there today. But I'm still as busy as I've ever been. I'm as busy today as I was last year, 2 years, 3 years ago. I would say in general, there are far more short sales and foreclosures behind us than there are in front of us, but they're still out there. I'd say short sales and foreclosures, again, depending on the area, depending on the county, probably 15 to 20% of the market.
Let's do both sides of this deal. Let's say I'm a buyer coming into today's market, and I hear that short sales are bargains. So I go out looking for short sales. Is that a mistake, or do I really need to do my homework, Wes, before I get involved?
I'd say you definitely need to do your homework, and it's not a mistake to get involved in a short sale, but if you are seeking a killer deal, if you are seeking a bargain, so to speak, you know, it's really been a couple of years since I've seen great deals on short sales. A couple of years ago, we didn't really know where the bottom of the market was, or we were hanging out at the bottom of the market. We didn't know how quickly we'd be rebounding. And yeah, you might have gotten some 70, 80 cents on the dollar type deals. But I think it's safe to say that nationwide, we pretty much hit the bottom. And even here in Washington, you know, in just about all locations, we've hit the bottom and we're on our way back up. And the banks have recognized this as well. So, you know, again, the reason that short sales go through are that they mitigate the bank loss versus going through the foreclosure process. So they're there to mitigate loss for themselves, recover money. So they want to recover as much as they can. So they're not giving these away anymore.
So, Wes, I'll put myself in the lender's shoes for a second. Let's say I'm a lender. I've got a couple of short sales. And I want to get rid of them, obviously. I don't want to go to foreclosure because I know foreclosure process is going to cost me, the lender, more money than a short sale.
That's right.
So somebody makes an offer on a short sale home, and I'm the lender, and I think it's too low. I go back to you, the real estate agent, and say, no, I'm not going to accept that. Do I give you an indication of what I will accept?
That is right. They will give us an indication. And if they believe it's too low, and right now, this is the biggest thing that we're facing. This is the biggest challenge we're having in short sales right now, is we're probably getting this 3 or 4 out of times. And what I mean by that is a value dispute. The bank coming back and saying, hey, we want to work with you guys, but this offer is not good enough. And they have actually gone out and they've done their mini appraisal. They've likely done a broker's price opinion, which we call a BPO, and it's where they send a real estate agent out and they basically do a mini appraisal. So we've got an idea of what it is that they are looking for, and they've been coming back higher and higher, and it's been more coming from the investors behind the loans than it is from the bank themselves. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they own the bulk of the loan. So although you may make your mortgage payment to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or maybe even BECU,
right,
the consumer actually thinks that those banks own the loan when in fact they probably don't. There's a good chance it's a government agency. So
the decision's coming from a higher power.
That's correct. So although I believe it's a market value offer, although the buyer's agent, they may believe that it's a market value offer as well, and the person who went out there to do the appraisal, they may also believe that. The bank can still come back and say, no, we think it's worth more. And they don't necessarily give you a reason why. I think that sometimes they are just coming back with a higher number just because. And, they're negotiating. I don't blame them for that. But over the last 6 to 12 months, I've seen this happen more and more, and I've seen them come back with higher and higher numbers compared to where the evidence suggests the value should be. So yeah, this is it's becoming a challenge, and this is one of the reasons that I keep saying that there are no great deals in short sales. You can get a deal, you can get a good deal, you can get a market value deal, but you're not seeing those great 70, 80 cents on the dollar deals anymore. Those days are long gone.
Wes, you're an expert in this, and you deal with them in every day. Do lenders bargain like a conventional seller's bargain? When a buyer and seller get into a home deal, oftentimes bargaining goes back and forth. I offer you X number of dollars, you come back someplace in between, we go back. Are lenders willing or eager to bargain, or are they more difficult and say, you know what, we're not going any further, this is what we're going to do?
They are certainly not eager. They're not eager to negotiate, but they do negotiate. And it seems like we're having to go back probably about 2 or 3 times and go through the negotiation process to finally find some common ground with the bank. So it's become more of a drawn-out process. And I've had to change my consultations with our clients because of this. A year ago, I'd say, hey, once we get an offer, we're probably looking at 2 to 3 months before the bank approves. And if we don't have a value dispute, that would still remain true. But like I keep saying, we're seeing more and more value disputes, and that can drag a negotiation out to 3, 4, 5 months. It just depends.
Okay. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll come back with Wes Jones. He is a short sale expert, and we'll ask Wes about that time frame involved. If it does take 2 or 3 months, is it worthwhile for you to look at a short sale, or you should buy conventionally? Let's talk more about that. We definitely will have room for you. 1-888-973-KIRO. That's 1-888-973-5476. Or go to our websites, mynorthwest.com, KIROradio.com, and you can ask your question online right now. This is Tom Kelly. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Estate Today, your headquarters for home and loan questions every week. My name is Tom Kelly, and I write about homes and loans every day. You can check out most of that content on our website. Go to My Northwest, scroll on down to Real Estate. We've got a daily real estate news feed there, all sorts of commentaries, studies, surveys about Puget Sound real estate, national trends, lots of fun, lots of information. MyNorthwest.com. Scroll on down to real estate. And we got a question from Phil. Hi, Phil. Good morning.
Good morning, Tom. How are you doing?
What can we do for you?
Well, I've got a question for you. I've been looking for some homes and looking in the Seattle area, and was in Mill Creek and saw a home that at first it didn't even look like it was a short sale. I saw that it was a good price, and then drove through the neighborhood and noticed that the other homes next to it were considerably bigger, and they were about $110,000, $120,000 in value more.
Really?
So yeah. So then, I called the listing agent, and then found out that the home was a short sale, and that they were discounting the price of the home for a couple reasons. One, that the seller was distressed. And then two, the home was built in 1992, and the owner of the home likely had some financial issues over the past few years and never made any improvements to the home. So, there's a couple things going on. One, that that they want to do a short sale, but two, the home is not in perfect condition.
It's interesting. I used to always go out and look for the least expensive home in the neighborhood because that was always a great investment. Wes Jones is here. He is with Keller Williams, and the name of his team are Home Helper Consultants. And Wes specializes in short sales. So Phil goes through this neighborhood, and this is not uncommon, Wes. You see this discounted because a short sale process is involved. What's Phil's next step? What should he do?
Well, I think Phil just needs to, talk with his real estate agent and really understand what he's getting involved in. And although I'd say that a lot of our listings, they don't look like short sales from the outside, and you can see this great deal, on the price tag, but you come to learn a few more details like, hey, and it might need a new roof, and that new roof may not, pass the appraisal. So what are you going to do at that point? He, made a comment earlier that the seller was likely in distress, and that is probably the case. So if this was a traditional sale, well, you'd either be able to knock, some of the price tag off of the top, or what was most likely to happen is you'd ask the seller to go ahead and repair that roof prior to closing. Now, since this is a short sale, you're not likely to get that to happen. So you're going to have to look for, a different type of workaround. And what does that workaround look like? You're probably looking at doing that work prior to closing, or you are looking to see if your lender will hold back a certain amount of funds to do the roof.
So, Wes, you mentioned that he would have to do the work prior to closing. If he starts doing the work, does that guarantee him the property?
That's a great question, and the answer is no. That doesn't guarantee him the property. So, it's a risk reward. It depends how bad you want that property. If this property is the one, and if you can't live without it, it might be something that you think about doing once you have short sale lender approval. And this is something that we see from time to time. We have sellers in this position who can't afford to make those types of repairs, and the buyer will come in and do them once we have lender approval. Once we have lender approval, it's really up to the buyer at that point to perform on the loan.
Let me play devil's advocate here in response to Phil's question. Okay, so Phil likes this house. And he starts doing work on the roof. And he's working real hard, and he's spending a lot of money to fix this roof. And then all of a sudden, two or three more buyers, maybe a couple investors come around. They say, well, hey, this guy's fixing the roof, and he doesn't have a slam dunk. Maybe I go to the lender and make a higher offer than Phil. That puts Phil in jeopardy.
It might not as much as you think, because there is a contract between the buyer and the seller.
Okay.
And that's rock solid. And if you have achieved lender approval at that point, you can't just have somebody slide in. And I'll play devil's advocate with you on that one. If I'm the seller,
right,
and I'm trying to avoid foreclosure, and I've got approval from the bank, I probably don't care if somebody is offering $10,000 more, because it's irrelevant to me as the seller because I'm not getting any of that money. I want to move on from the property, and I want to make sure that I have a successful sale. And if you've got an approval letter from the bank, you're working with that buyer, and you're gonna see that one through. So yeah, to answer the question, there is risk. There's risk anytime you're putting in money into a property that is not yours. So you just have to make a calculated risk and decide if that's worth it for you.
Phil, does that help you? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, because it's definitely something to be concerned about with that roof issue.
Great. Thank you. You know, we're talking with Wes Jones, and he is with Keller Williams. He's got a specialty in short sales. The name of his team is called Home Helper Consultants. And you can reach Wes during the week at 425-274-0171. 425-274-0171. If you're a real estate professional in the industry and you don't want to deal with short sales, give Wes a call. He might be able to help you through it, or he might be able to take it on for you, and you can work on a referral with him. 425-274-0171. Wes, we're going to take a short break for Bob Larson in the news, but before we do, you brought up a great point. You said that the seller and the buyer have a contract. A lot of people think that once it goes to a short sale, all of the decisions are made by the bank, but the seller still has a say in this, correct?
Yeah, the seller has a big say in this. You know, it is still their property, until it goes through the foreclosure process. And they get to decide what happens to it. If they decide to sell it as a short sale, that's up to them. And they go ahead and agree, to what the buyer, they're the ones that agree to an offer, and they can decide to take it or they can decide not to take it. But once they've got a contract between the buyer and the seller, that's pretty rock solid. But at that point, it's still up to the bank to go ahead and approve that price.
Okay. We're going to take a break for Bob Larson in the news, and when we come back with Wes Jones, we'll talk about the costs of foreclosure versus the cost of on short sales. Right here on Real Estate Today. 1-888-973-KIRO. We've got time for you during the second half of the show. 1-888-973-5476. Or go to our websites, mynorthwest.com, KIROradio.com, and we can take your question online during the second half of the show. This is Real Estate Today. We'll be right back. If you have an idea for a future show, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, give us a call, and we'll get on an expert, much like today's expert in short sales, Wes Jones from Home Helper Consultants. We've been talking with Wes about the process and what's on the market regarding short sales, because a lot of people saying, well, homes are appreciating. Why are people still behind on their payments and going into short sale? But there's a variety of reasons behind that. One of them is banks and other lenders dole out short sales and foreclosures periodically. They don't put them all out there at the same time. They kind of go out, they put them out there so that they can be digested as the market progresses. If they put them all out there at the same time, we'd have a glut of properties. And yes, the foreclosure numbers are down, and they are still coming out on the market. But they do this, they gauge what the market can bear. And Wes, that happens a lot. People don't really understand that. There's not a ton of them out there because lenders hold them back, hoping that they'll be digested in the local market.
That's right, and I'll clarify something right there. As far as the short sale goes, the banks do not hold those back because they don't control that. A seller is going to go ahead and control when they put their home on the market as a short sale. But what you're referring to is the bank-owned properties, those that have already been through the foreclosure process or have maybe been given back via a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And what you're talking about is the shadow inventory. And we heard a lot about this a couple years ago, that there was hundreds of thousands of bank-owned homes that the bank was just sitting on to because they did not want to flood the market and have it drop again. And how much shadow inventory is out there, we're not exactly sure. But I know that it does exist because I can watch homes in neighborhoods that I'm selling in, and I know that a property has been taken back by the bank, and it could be sitting there for 2 years.
Wes, why are people still having to go to short sales? I mean, people look at the appreciation. Why are so many people still behind on their payments and not able to sell basically for what they bought for?
Hey, there's any number of reasons out there, and a very successful bank-owned agent, who sells for the banks, he had his best year in 2007. 2007 is when the market was still really, really hot. So there are people out there that are going to be going through this no matter where the market's at. But what am I seeing right now? I'm seeing any number of reasons. Now, here in the core of the city and what I call, being in between the bridges, if you're in between I-90 and you're in between 520, give or take a little bit, things are hot right now. And there are not as many short sales in these locations as far as single-family homes. But you just go a little bit further out, you start to go a little bit north, you start to go a little bit south, and the recovery is not there like it is here in the core of the city. You just have to get a little bit further south down into Kent and maybe up into Snohomish County, and values just have not rebounded nearly as quickly. So for a lot of people, if they still purchased or refinanced in between, say, 2005 through maybe 2009, there's still a really good chance they're upside down. And, on top of that, condo values, they have not recovered, like single family homes have. I'm still doing condos on the east side. I have them in Bellevue and I have them in Kirkland because the market just has not come up enough. But some of the common things that I am seeing right now, reasons to do a short sale, well, number one, they're upside down. People are relocating. Although we have a lot of jobs that are coming into Seattle, there's still people that are taking jobs elsewhere. So if you are relocating and you've got a property that's upside down, that's a reason to do a short sale.
We talked a little bit about the costs, that it costs more to do a foreclosure than a short sale. Approximately how much, Wes? Can you gauge this for our readers? Excuse me, our listeners.
Yeah,
talk about newspaper people.
Absolutely. This is the reason that short sales go through. It's not because the banks care about our situation. It's really not. It doesn't mean that there's not good people at the banks, but the banks approve short sales for one reason and one reason only. It's a loss mitigation strategy for them. They will recover about 80% of a loan by doing a short sale. That's what the statistics will show. If they go through foreclosure, and they allow it, who knows? That foreclosure could take anywhere from 12 to 36 months.
And you never know what's going to be sold at the courthouse steps, what number that's going to be.
Well, hey, you got to look at it this way. It could take 12 to 36 months if somebody's going through foreclosure. Maybe they're not taking care of their property as much as they should. Maybe they're not paying their property taxes. It goes through foreclosure. Who knows what condition it's in? They take the property back. Now they've got to fix it up. Then they've got to sell it. And all the cost and time associated with that, not to mention the trustees' fees and everything that goes into it. So the results show that a bank is going to recover 80% of a loan in a short sale, where they're only going to recover about 60% in foreclosure. So it's 20%, and that's why they do it. It's because they can lose less money.
And the seller, Wes, saves money. The foreclosure is a legal process, and they have to go, most of the time, hire an attorney to help them with this. How much will a seller save doing a short sale versus going through foreclosure?
Well, it might not be about saving money, but it's, because a lot of times someone is opting to go through foreclosure. Foreclosure is a process, and it can just happen around them by doing nothing, essentially by sticking your your head in the sand.
Right.
If you do nothing, foreclosure, and you're behind on your payments, foreclosure will happen. Now, a seller who wants to speed up the process, or an owner, I should say, may want to employ a lawyer to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure and speed that process up. But if they want to avoid foreclosure, if they want to salvage their credit, and if they want to be able to buy sooner, they're going to opt to do a short sale. And a short sale is typically a free service performed by the real estate agent for the seller.
Okay. We're going to take a short commercial break and come back and talk more with Wes Jones about short sales. We also have time to hear from you. 1-888-973-KIRO, 1-888-973-5476. The websites are there for you all the time, mynorthwest.com, KIROradio.com. You can ask questions there as well. This is Tom Kelly. The show is Real Estate Today. We'll be right back. There are new guidelines when it comes to reverse mortgages. In fact, if you're a trailing spouse and not on the reverse mortgage, you can stay in the home if you originate that reverse mortgage after August 4th, 2014. So we'll be talking about those new guidelines next week with Brian Cook from Alpine Mortgage Planning. Explanation of the new guidelines for reverse mortgages next week right here on Real Estate Today. My guest is Wes Jones. He's with Keller Williams Realty, and he has a specialty in short sales. And the name of his team is the Home Helper Consultants. Wes, let's talk a little bit about this short sale option. You know, a lot of people, they don't understand that, and it's relatively new to them. It's a new option. They thought the only thing that was out there if they were behind on their payments was to say, as you mentioned, stick their head in their sand and wait for foreclosure. When did short sales become a viable option for the average consumer?
Short sales have always been around, but they haven't been mainstream since the national real estate market, tanked and started turning. Probably back in 2005 and 2006. That's probably when it started. We didn't see them up here in the Northwest, greater Seattle area, till about 2008, 2009. And that's simply because Seattle traditionally lags 12 to 24 months behind the national real estate economy. But yeah, in about 2008, 2009, that's when I started doing my first short sales, and that's when they kind of became, a word that people started to become familiar with, although it came with a lot of unknowns and uncertainty when you heard the term short sale.
When should a person get involved in a short sale? What kind of preparation should they do? A lot of times people are in denial. They can't make their payments. They wait for a notice from the bank, and then they still do nothing. It doesn't feel good, but they have to get involved early. What is early in your mind?
The earlier, the better. I mean, if you're heading this direction, if you believe that you are no longer going to be able to afford that mortgage payment, give me a call immediately. If you wait until the bank is sending you notices, a notice of default or a notice of trustee sale, it's not that I can't help you, because we still can. But it's like anything. The more time and the more preparation that you have, the better off you're going to be. And we have a very, very high success rate when we're catching people on the front end. And what I mean by the front end is while you're still current, or maybe when you're just a couple of months behind on your mortgage. And what people really need to know is those days of being 1, 2, 3 years behind on your mortgage and just sitting in your house, those days are long gone. The banks are speeding up the foreclosure process much quicker than they ever have in the past. So if this is something that you at all think you may need to go through, even if you don't know for sure, give me a call. Let's talk about your options, and let's set you up for success.
You mentioned that banks aren't giving the leniency that they used to. I got letters from readers of my newspaper column saying that they're still there 18 months after not making a payment, Wes, and have not heard from the bank yet. But you're saying those days are over.
There are some banks that are slower than others. Bank of America is one of them, and I would bet that those are some of the people that you're hearing from. But in general, those days of being, 12, 18, 24 months behind are over. A year ago, I was telling people that the quickest I had seen foreclosure happen from start to finish, from missing a payment to the actual foreclosure, was about 18 months. I have seen it happen a number of times recently in under 12 months. So, yeah, there's exceptions to the rules. There's still people out there that I'm talking to that are farther behind, but the banks are not flooded. They're not as overwhelmed with this as they once were, and they're also more proficient with processing these short sales and foreclosure. So that's why it's happening quicker. So if you're banking on sitting in your home for 2 or 3 years, that's not a solid strategy.
Wes, I know you don't want to give up all of your strategies and secrets, but are there specific lenders that you would rather work with on short sales than others? And if so, are you willing to give that up?
Yeah, there's certain lenders that we like to see. You know, we were talking off air, and right now, what I tell people is short sales are as easy and hard at the same time. And what I mean by that is there's certain banks out there that really have their processes down. I really like to work with Bank of America. I really like to work with Wells Fargo. Chase is another great bank to work with as far as their document collection goes, you know, and their processes. There are some other banks, maybe for their second loans, maybe local banks, maybe some local credit unions that don't play by the same set of rules. And so there's other ones that I'm not as thrilled to be working with. But there is not a lender out there that we won't work with. We won't shy away from anybody. And there are other short sale groups out there that won't take on files from particular banks. And, you know, we'll talk to everybody.
Wes, in our short time left, if a house has 2 or 3 liens against it, second mortgage, how do you get the lenders to agree on what they'll do?
Absolutely. I wish we could have started this one at the beginning, but I'll give you the short story. Essentially, if you've got 2 loans on, you know, and you're going through a short sale, and the lender that's in first position, they need the cooperation of the second loan to get approval, to clear that loan. So, you know, again, why do they need their approval? Well, because the second loan also has a lien. So how are you going to...
But that said, the second goes away if the first forecloses, so they need to be in cahoots.
The second does not go away. That's a common misconception. A second actually survives foreclosure. So a second loan actually has more leverage over a seller than a first loan. But the first loan is actually going to make a payment to the second loan for their cooperation to release their lien. Because if they've decided they want to do a short sale, it means that they have mitigated loss, and they are going to make a payment. They're going to make a payment towards that second loan, and that second loan will probably agree to release the lien. And if they're getting enough money, they may write it off completely.
So I thought when a house went to foreclosure, the lender who was foreclosing was in first place, and the rest of the liens were extinguished. Is that not true? That's
not true. In Washington State, we're a non-recourse state for loans that are in first position. So a loan that's in first position, if what that means is essentially that if it goes back into foreclosure, the bank takes back the property, but there's no financial recourse against the seller. Now, if that homeowner has a second loan, that second loan can survive.
Got it.
And they can pursue a seller post foreclosure. So a homeowner in Washington has a tremendous reason to attempt a short sale if they have 2 loans, simply for the reason that they get the opportunity to settle with that second loan in a short sale, where they're not going to have that opportunity if they just allow foreclosure to happen around them.
Okay. Our time has just flown by with Wes Jones, and I want to give you his information. Get a hold of him during the week. His phone number is 425-274-0171. That's Wes Jones, Home Helper Consultants. He's with Keller Williams Realty. 425-274-0171. www.homehelperconsultants.com. Next week, all about the new guidelines from reverse mortgages. Brian Cook from Alpine Mortgage Planning. Thanks for listening to Real Estate Today, where if we don't have the answer, we try and